So, have I seen Gladiator 2? Yes, I have. And on this review, I will do my best not to spoil anything. There might be something that might give you a clue to potential spoiler, so just be aware of that. But I'll do my best not to spoil anything major in the movie. Let's talk about the Gladiator. Okay, so the first movie that was released in May of 2000 from DreamWorks Pictures and Universal Pictures. It was big epic scale that we haven't seen in a long time since Lawrence of Arabia, Spartacus, and Ben-Hur. So of course this was like bringing back that epic scale movie greatness that we haven't seen in a long time. And it was fresh, it was new. Upcoming stars like Russel Crowe back then, the Danish actress Connie Nielsen, legendary Richard Harris, legendary Richard Harris. He played Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor. Joaquin Phoenix as the Commodus that became the Emperor because he killed his father. If you haven't seen the movie, it's just spoilers. Which I assume everyone has seen Gladiator, man. It's been 25 years. And it was a movie that won Best Picture. Russell Crowe won Best Actor. 5 Academy Awards. Surprisingly, Ridley Scott didn't get an Oscar for a Best Director, which is still beyond me. A lot of people are kind of scratching their heads on that one. Is Ridley bitter about that? I don't blame him. If he is bitter about that, I don't blame him because it really made no sense to me as to why he never got the Oscar for the Best Director. If Ridley deserves an Oscar for one movie, it's Gladiator for sure. The music composer Hans Zimmer, of course, his score for the Gladiator. This is the Academy Award winning movie. It grossed I don't know how much money. Gross money was what, like back then, close to a billion. I think billions of dollars worldwide. It was just it was a huge phenomenon. Still is a phenomenon. People are still watching it, playing it. So the reason I'm talking about the first Gladiator is, how do you make a sequel? How do you make a sequel that it's so beloved and great by, it's loved by so many people, it's cherished by so many people, this martyr, this Maximus Decimus Maximus Decimus Aurelius character, who was a general of Rome and then became the gladiator and sacrificed himself to bring that dream that Marcus Aurelius has asked him. Remember, there's a famous scene when they're out in Germany fighting the barbarians. He was asked, "Would you, take this great offer that I propose to you to become the emperor of Rome?" And he says, "With all my heart, no." He says, "With all my heart, no," because the old man understood that the Rome is crippled with corruption, bribery, and greed, and all sorts of different things, and he wanted to change that. So, how do you, after 25 years later, how do you bring a sequel that will tie in with the first movie? Now, I know that this movie already gotten some criticism, and the reason that it got criticism is because people were expecting, there was an enormous expectation for this sequel, right? There was an enormous expectation that everyone was expecting this movie to top the first. Well, first of all, that's impossible. People out there who are giving a negative view of this movie, I have to disagree with them. After you see the movie, you'll understand why I disagree with them. First of all, even Ridley knows that there is no way that he can top the first movie, even with the Blade Runner 2049. Those are classics, you know. Even the original Die Hard, sure, there was Die Hard 2, Die Harder, but then there was the Die Hard with a Vengeance, which was a good sequel. But did it top the first movie? No. You know, those are classics for a reason. All right, we call these movies a classic for even the RoboCop. The original RoboCop, you know, the RoboCop 2 couldn't top the original RoboCop, the first RoboCop. So even Ridley knew that. Now the question is, did this movie need a sequel? That's the debate right now. Did Gladiator desperately needed a sequel? Is it profitable? Yeah. I'm sure this movie, Gladiator 2, will make a bunch of money. It'll profit a lot of money, not just across the world at the movie theaters, but also at the streaming services, digital stores where you can buy a movie, Blu-ray, right, DVD. I heard some are even selling cassettes. VHS are coming back, you know. So there's no question about that, and I think Ridley Scott understands that. But what was the main inspiration to do a sequel? I think what Ridley said in an interview, he said this movie just won't go away. It's such a huge phenomenon. 25 years later, and this movie, it's still playing everywhere. There's not a place you can go on this planet, there's not a continent you can go on this planet where this movie it's not playing. It's playing everywhere. And Ridley says this movie just simply won't go away. It's such a cherished movie that it just simply won't go away. All right, so let's get back into the sequel. The reason I'm mentioning the first movie, because I have to explain to you the first movie and just how huge scale, enormous the first movie was and how successful the first movie was. And then when I'm reviewing now the sequel, so that way you can tie in what I'm talking about. All right, so let's give a brief story about the first Gladiator. So the first Gladiator, Maximus Decimus Meridius, served under the Marcus Aurelius emperor, and his daughter Lucilla, which, you know, you're spending so much time on a battlefield away from your wife, from your kids, Lucilla is very attractive, etc., etc., and they had an affair. Let's just put it that way. They had a little love affair, and of course she was pregnant, and the child came out. And whose child is that? Because we always wondered in the when we were watching the beginning of the Gladiator. Then we find out that child is this one. I'll show you in a minute. This is Lucius. Lucius is Maximus' son from Lucilla. And his uncle, played by Joaquin Phoenix, Commodus, knew that his sister Lucilla loved Maximus, and then that's his child. So Commodus learned that his father, Maximus Aurelius, never really loved him, never really liked his own son, and he wanted Maximus to be his son, Maximus to take and lead the the Rome. He made that offer. He says, by the sunrise, hopefully you will make your decision whether or not you will accept my offer. And then what happened is there was a scene between, played by Richard Harris, may he rest in peace, between Joaquin Phoenix, Commodus, and Maximus, Commodus and Aurelius, Aurelius, the Emperor Aurelius, and Commodus chokes his father. Aurelius, Marcus Aurelius, he chokes his father and kills his father, Marcus Aurelius, and then he made it look like that Maximus Decimus has something to do with that he conspired in that because they had a talk the night before, and obviously Maximus was taken to be executed in the forest. He escapes. As the orders by the Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix. So, long story short, he's then he ran and traveled all the way to his home, to his homeland, to save his wife and a son. And when he got there, he found out that they have been murdered already. And that's when, Maximus gets captured by Romans again, and they take him as a gladiator. And then, Oliver Reed is played by one of the guys who actually captures him and buys him as a slave. And then as a slave, he becomes a gladiator. And as a gladiator, of course, that's where he exposes himself, who he is, as the Maximus Decimus Meridius, general who became a slave, and the slave who became a gladiator, and the gladiator who defied the empire and killed the Commodus. As you can see, Commodus is dead over here, and that's Maximus. But Maximus dies too because he's already wounded. He was stabbed. And he was bleeding, and he died. But at the end, he tells Lucilla, and let's find Lucilla. Where's Lucilla? Is she here? I know she's here. This is Lucilla. This is Lucilla and her son Lucius. He tells Lucilla that Lucius is safe, meaning no one can touch him anymore. Don't have to worry about your brother Commodus. He's safe. So what she does, and this is where the sequel ties in. So what she does, she sends Lucius away. She sends him away. I think somewhere like in Africa or somewhere out there. And that's where the movie ends. And this is where the sequel. So that's him, growing up in some village somewhere in Africa, and this is Lucius. Okay, so the way the sequel starts, it starts with Lucius at this place. I think it's somewhere in Africa. I think. Forgive me if I forgot. And that's where we see Roman fleet coming in. That's led by Roman general played by Pedro Pascal, and this is the general right here. I'll show it to you. Played by Pedro Pascal, the general. He leads this fleet to capture this place where Lucius is at, right? And that's where Lucius fought with this general, and that's also where Lucius loses his wife, because he had a wife while he was growing up there on that place in Africa, and I don't know if I can maybe, like, there's the fight scene. This is where he fights. This is the place, his homeland, where he is being attacked and loses his wife. There's the battle scenes right here. There it is right there. This is when they come in with the ships and they attack this place. Again, I can't remember if it's in Africa. I think somewhere in Africa. And might be in Spain, but I think it's in Africa. So after that, he gets captured by the Romans as a slave. Now, keep in mind that they don't know who he is when he gets captured, and he's taken and brought back to Rome. And once we are to Rome, we learn about these two twin emperors, brother emperors. And these two brother emperors are very intriguing and entertaining. And again, this is just shows you just how corrupt and how crazy the Roman Empire has become. Like, they'll have anyone be the emperor. Like, they have no code of principle. Like, that all the code of principle has been gone. This is 16 years later after death of Maximus. And after 16 years later, we find out that the Rome is different. Rome right now, it's just a crazy place. Now, this is Lucia's wife, and she gets killed early on in a movie, and he loses his wife. Just like tragically, just like Maximus lost his wife and a child in the first movie, so he loses his wife, and this now gives him the reason to really bring down this empire once and for all. And that's really where the story picks up. The story, it's about Lucius. What I'm trying to say here to everybody, without butchering this any longer than it needs to be, without spoiling too much, is because I want you to understand that this is a sequel that connects the dots with the first movie. All right. And I'll explain why I don't think that's a bad move on Ridley. I think that's a genius move on Ridley. And of course, once he becomes a slave, then he's sold to this guy right here, the Denzel Washington character, which is, I believe, right here. Denzel Washington character, if I can find him right there. Now, this character, I will not talk much about him because it's hard to talk about this character without spoiling the movie. And he has a lot to do with a lot of things. But I don't want to spoil it because I want you to see the movie. But he is one of those characters that plays an important role, but also a role that I don't want to spoil here. You need to see the movie. This is a movie about Maximus' son, Lucius. Okay. So what I'm trying to say, for everybody out there who's like thinking about watching this movie, please understand that this movie makes sense. It's not like some mindless generic action for the sake of profit, even though there's crazy action in this movie. But the movie ties in. It's a good sequel. What I'm trying to say to everybody out there who's giving this movie a negative score is it is a sequel, and it's a good sequel. Is it better than the first one? Of course not. even Ridley knew that after 25 years, this is no way that we can make it better than what we originally did. Even if they somehow could bring Russell Crowe, still wouldn't make much of a difference. You're still not going to have, you know, a movie at that scale, because the first movie was so original, was so great. It was made at the right time, the right place, with the right people. So you know, you can't accomplish that greatness that was already accomplished. So this is a good sequel, and I think that's how people need to look at this. It's like a season two, like of TV show. Like the season one was awesome. It's hard to top that first season. Second season was okay, was good. So it's kind of like that. Like you have to look at this movie as a good sequel, and it is a good sequel. And there's a lot of great scenes in this movie that will remind you of the first movie. It looks similar like the first movie in terms of a style, because they built the same arena that they built in the first movie, in the same exact location in Malta. So that's because the same director is directing it. So it has the same style to it. Here's what I will say. It's Ridley Scott. Even the opening movie has a excellent. This I will spoil this for you a little bit. This art. There's this. You know how the Scott Free production has like an art painting art for his logo. So the logo continues with Scott Free production, Paramount, and then we go flashback to what happened in the first Gladiator movie, and it was really done well with a score of Harry Gregson Williamson and Hans Zimmer, you know, theme of Hans Zimmer. And it really sets you up nicely and shows you what really has happened in the first movie. This is a beautiful montage introduction that was done really well, because Ridley, it's a painter, he's a artist, so it was done really well, and it was really the beginning of the movie was done well. It really opens up the movie nicely. And I didn't find this movie boring. The 2.5 hours was entertaining, was great, was emotional. I thought it was a good sequel. I wouldn't say this was a great movie. I wouldn't say that, ooh, this is something you have to see. But if you love Gladiator, I think this is a good sequel. A good sequel that I think over time will grow. I think this sequel was really designed for those of us who still yearn for that first movie. And I think it ties in, you know, so there's no loose ends. So that way we have some closure. You know, think of Gladiator trilogy, because they're working on there will be a third one as well. You have to think about it this way. His grandpa, Marcus Aurelius, had a dream. He had a dream of better Rome, and he wanted his general Maximus Decimus Meridius to be the guy that leads and change the Rome, you know, for the better, because it's been crippled by so much corruption. But unfortunately, that dream was torn down by his son, Commodus, and here we are. Here we are, 16 years later. To Rome, it's more evil than ever. It's more corrupted than ever. So where do we go from there? Well, we have Lucius, who survived. Lucius comes in, and he wants to honor his father and his father's dream that he wanted to bring to Rome. And again, I don't want to spoil the movie, because you need to watch this movie. But what I would try to do, and the reason this video is so long, because I wanted to explain to you how the movie ties in. So people who say that this movie was okay, mediocre, my question is, did you watch the first movie? Do you understand the story of the first movie? So, okay, if you understand that, then you understand the story of this one as well. And it fits in. I will not lie. The story fits in. If the one thing this movie has going for it is the story continues, and it makes sense. And this is the only way that the story can make sense, because Maximus is dead. He's 6 feet under. Commodus is gone. He's dead as well. Marcus Aurelius, of course, dead. So this only leaves Lucilla and Lucius. And that's where we start this movie. And of course, you gotta watch the movie to find out what happens at the end and where do we go from there for the chapter 3. And I think with this trilogy of A Gladiator, I think it'll really put a closure to this phenomenon that won 5 Academy Awards, Best Picture. And I want to say this before I end this video. Should you see this movie? Yes, you should. I mean, you should see this movie. You will not be disappointed. You will be entertained, okay? You got Denzel, you got Paul Mescal, you got Pedro Pascal and Pascal. You've got Connie Nielsen. You've got those other 2 actors who played the 2 Emperor's brothers. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Beautiful music, an amazing visionary sets made in Colosseum, a visionary action by Ridley Scott. It's a Ridley Scott movie. But don't expect this to be like a grand scale as the first movie. Nothing can top first movie. Even Ridley knows that. This is not about that. Ridley didn't make this movie to top his original movie. He knows he can't do that. It's impossible. But he wanted to put some closure to this story, to finish this trilogy, and put an end to it, and just leave it, and that's it. Let it stay there. Let it cook, and let generations watch this trilogy and make their own judgment on it. So I'm sorry that this video is half an hour, but look, there's so much I needed to say, because I don't think, while I'm watching all these reviews, and this is just something I want to say, I watched a bunch of reviews regarding this movie, and reviews are just based on criticism, but I don't see anyone like explain, hey, this is the reason why this movie was made in the first place. So my whole point here is, I want to bring out to you guys is, I want to explain to you why this movie was made in the first place. Did it need a sequel? No. But does it make sense now that the sequel is made? Yes. After you see the movie, it will connect the dots and it will make all sense to you. So it's a good sequel. I highly recommend that you go see it. But just keep your expectations low as to, like, this is not going to be something that's better than the first movie. And that's okay. It's not supposed to be better than the first movie. It's a sequel. Okay? And the third movie, don't expect it to be better than the sequel, because it's a continuation of the sequel. So, okay? I hope this really gives you some idea about The Gladiator. I would just like ignore all the negatives. I don't know what it is. Some people are just I don't know really what they were expecting from this. This was the only way that this movie, the sequel, could be made. I can't see the sequel being made any other way. And it's made by the same director. You got the same director, and he's telling you this is the only way that this makes sense. And even Russell Crowe says, if Ridley, and this is quoting me quoting Russell Crowe, he said, if Ridley is making this movie, I'm sure he has a pretty good reason to make the sequel. Otherwise, he wouldn't be making it. And that's from his longtime friend, Russell Crowe, who said that. All right, so I hope that this review, this half an hour, gives you some idea and reason to go see this movie. I think you should see it. I think you will enjoy it. Visually, it's beautiful. It's music, it's just beautiful as well. I think you will be entertained, and you will also enjoy the story as well. There's a lot of emotions here. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of stuff here. I think you will enjoy this movie. ignore the naysayers and all the negativity. Guys, go see the movie for yourself. Don't just listen to the critics. Their job is to criticize. Even Napoleon, it's not a bad movie, but critics are critics. All right, thank you for watching.